What even is Grand Blue? Is it a diving anime? Is it a drinking anime? Or is it an anime to where a bunch of your friends get together just to fool around and basically have a college life? I really don't even know what to expect from this series, but there is one thing I do know after watching this episode and the previous, is that this series is hilarious. It's absolutely funny. I was dying while watching this episode. Like, seeing the whole room makeover scene for the first half, I was just laughing non-stop. And it's been a while since I laughed from the bottom of my heart deep down. I was like, this is hilarious, because the comedy is something you just don't see quite often, especially with the whole room makeover, and especially the way it was done. Because, I mean, let's be real here. You do not normally see a room makeover like what we saw at first. And I was really surprised with how graphic it got in some ways in this episode. And the reaction of our main characters, you know, roommates or people that are with him, I was just really laughing a lot while watching this episode. And eventually the situation got worse and worse as it continued to go on. It eventually turned into a really perverted looking dude's room, to an anime lover's room, and then to someone that was a yaoi BL fan, and then it converted into something even worse. You're like, oh my god. Like, what the hell? Like, this man is not catching a break whatsoever throughout this episode. And I'm just like, this is what happens when you leave two individuals or multiple individuals to give a makeover to your room that obviously doesn't really know how to handle certain situations properly. I mean, they're constantly stripping and looking like they do throughout the first and second episode. So, I mean, when you think about it like that, I guess he really shouldn't have trusted the dudes to give his room a proper makeover. But nonetheless, though, it was absolutely hilarious, and I think many can agree with me that this show is funny as hell. It's definitely one of the better series of Summer of Anime 2018. But okay, so the first half of this episode, like I said, it focuses on a room makeover. And for the most part, it's pretty easy to get through. It's kind of like, you know, straightforward what was going on. Basically, our main male character, he wanted to go to a party, which kind of goes against what he was doing in the first episode, because he wanted to just go home and not have to be dragged into these parties every so often by these individuals that he's a part of. For instance, the club, the diving club. And he didn't really want to go. He finally had an excuse, but eventually, like, hey, you know, there's a couple of girls that also want to meet us and go out drinking and all that tonight. And he's like, oh, really? And so he wanted to go and, you know, party with them. So the only way he could do that was to make it to where his room wasn't in a bad state. And so he went out of his way to make sure his room was proper for the person that, you know, would let him go. And eventually, as it continued, we saw his room get worse and worse until eventually it wound up being like a stalker-looking room with Chisa. And I'm like, oh my god, this anime is... it's great, dude. Like, yo, Grand Blue is... it's fire, dude. Like, this series is fire. I was laughing non-stop. But yeah, the first half, like I said, is pretty simple. It's straightforward. I think everybody can kind of understand what was going on there. Pretty much the big experience you can take from that scene is if you want something done, do it yourself. That's usually what it comes down to. And so the main male character, instead of trying to, you know, take the easy way, he probably should have decorated his room in the first place instead of allowing others to mess with it. Now, the second half of the episode is also very straightforward. It's about diving, which that's what I thought this series was going to be about when I read the synopsis to it in the Summer of Anime 2018. And we finally get into some content of that. For instance, our main male character trying to get into diving. And we kind of find out that the man is not really into diving whatsoever. He doesn't really care about being underwater. The man can't even swim. And I really like the role reversal for this, because normally you have it to where the female character is the person that can't swim, but this time around, it's our main male character that has no idea how to swim, and he's afraid of the water. He doesn't really like it whatsoever. And majority of the second half is him trying to figure out if he loves it or not, or if he will give it another chance. And eventually, as he's trying to learn, a lot of comedy segments happen and funny stuff that I couldn't stop laughing to. Eventually, we get to a very serious moment to where the man is told to go to this aquarium and eventually see if he wants to go back underwater. Come to find out, he's like, you know what, I'll give it another chance. It looks very beautiful. I would like to know more about this water world and all that if I ever dive back down. So, I mean, overall, I think the presentation of this episode was very simple, but well done. The execution of it was really well done, and definitely kept me focused on the series from start to finish. I mean, the entire scene towards the end of how, like, he's like, oh, I realize now why she sent me to the aquarium. Nobody likes to hear bad things about what they like, which makes a lot of sense. I mean, let's look at, fanboys or fangirls of different series. Let's say you're a fanboy or fangirl of this series, Grand Blue, and someone wants to come up to you and say, I don't really like Grand Blue, it's a bad series and all that, or they just don't like it. They're like, it's okay and all that. Obviously, if you're a fan of the series, you're going to want to defend it. You're like, how do you not like this? There's great characters, you go out of your way to defend it. And so that entire reasoning to how the main male character was talking about that, he's like, nobody wants to hear something bad about what they love, that honestly is the best way to describe almost anything. I mean, not just for this series, Grand Blue, but for anything. Like, I mean, anime, manga, to TV, to books, to games, I mean, anything, honestly. People are like that. They don't want to hear negative things about what they like, and so obviously it's like, they would go out of their way to try to get you into it. So I thought that scene was very cool. I like the message there. But that's pretty much about it when it comes to this episode. I mean, there were so many great moments. I mean, one of the highlights for me for this episode, honestly, I think was definitely the room scene, because when it went from, like, this 18-plus looking room, eventually to this otaku anime looking room, eventually turning into BL, I'm like, oh my god, like, yo, like, what? So, I mean, just like this episode, it was great. It was definitely something that kept me entertained from start to finish. Definitely something that is the perfect series to top off the day. Like, if you're watching a bunch of anime for Friday, which, such as myself, I mean, I'm watching Angels of Death, and then I'm watching, this Grand Blue, also watching, Happy Sugar Life and all that, and a couple other series, too, I save until Friday. I mean, obviously, you're going to have a quite packed schedule. That's not including manga chapters. Personally, I think Grand Blue would be the best way to kind of top off a day, if anything, because, I mean, it's just that type of series where you can kind of sit back. It may not be a chill series like Slice of Life Romance, but the way the series is presented, it's one of those type of shows you can watch to just end the day off of because of how funny it can be and relaxing at certain times. But that's my thoughts on episode 2. Overall, great series. I want to continue watching it, and I'm really happy that so many of you recommended me to watch this series over the years that's been going on. I'm really happy that so many of you recommended me to watch this series and all that, so thank you so much for that. Thank you for the recommendations, and if you want to see more reviews on this series or first impressions or whatever, let me know in the comments below. And with that, I love you guys. You have a wonderful day or night wherever you live. If you enjoy my content, please subscribe. If you like this video, please leave a like, and with that, Chibi out.